from Melbourne's beautiful Yarra. Don't worry, they've had their shots. This is Ben, Liam and Belle's Pedal Mo
on Nova 100.
You know, we mentioned raise money and important conversations, and we've had a lot of chat about raising money so far, and maybe not so many of those conversations so far, and that they are, you know, difficult to have. But yeah, I figured this morning I might share my story a little bit because you know, that's what we're trying to do here: get rid of stigma and be open and honest about mental health. And yeah, look, recently I've been having a really great trot, really a good time with life, and you know, I can say I'm in a really good spot at the moment. But that wasn't always the way. And for some people who are familiar with the show, you know, might have heard this story before. But yeah, it was from when I was 20 years old, and Ben and I had got a job over in Sydney, and we'd moved over to a station called Triple J, and that was like a big experience for us, like a couple of young guys from Adelaide sort of getting that first big gig, and yeah, it sort of ended up being a pretty tricky year for us. Being a new show in radio, you sort of, you know, you're open to a lot of feedback. Some of it can be brutal. And unfortunately, that was the way it was going at the time. So there was, you know, a hell of a lot of like sort of vitriolic slurs and comments and things thrown at us on text lines and online. And yeah, it was a time when, you know, social media was extra sort of nasty. And you know, I had people saying all sorts of things to me, like I should take my own life and that sort of stuff. And it sounds crazy, but when you see that sort of stuff enough and you're in a bad headspace, you sort of start to believe those sort of things. And yeah, I sort of became really depressed over sort of 9 months. This is back in 2017, and yeah, I sort of had an altercation once on a night out where some people were sort of giving some of those comments to my face, and like they really cut me deep. And then I started getting really anxious and sort of even didn't really like leaving the house too much, and I sort of, like, I suppose I sort of spiraled a little bit, and you know, I probably led on a little bit to, you know, to the likes of Ben, but for the most part, my friends and family back at home, I didn't really talk about how I was feeling because I suppose it sounds bad saying it because, you know, it's sort of what we're saying, you know, it's like it's not. And it isn't, but I was sort of embarrassed and like ashamed of how I was feeling, and like didn't really want to open up because I was like, oh no, like just pretending everything's okay because I didn't want my friends to think like I was doing a bad job at my work or like that I wasn't handling things. So I was like certainly trying to keep it in, and that was not a good thing for me. And yeah, it sort of all built to a head sort of 9 months after I was going through all this and feeling this way, and yeah, one day it got to that point where I wasn't sleeping, and it was really, really starting to impact my life, and I ended up speaking out about it. And I know this is, you know, not the same for everyone. No, it's just by nature of my job. It's like, you know, I work in radio, so that's a platform I had to speak out about, and I spoke to Ben about it and had an open and honest conversation with it. And like, honestly, it was like the floodgates opening. It was such a weight lifted off my shoulders, and it was met with such an like outpouring of love from people listening in, and also like all those loved ones around me. And I'm not saying it's like one of those things that you talk about and then all your issues go away, but I can honestly say, like, since opening up and speaking about these sort of things, like it's honestly turned my life around in such a positive direction. And you know, the power of just being able to speak about how you feel, oh man, it's like nothing else. And I remember around that time as well, I went to a Movember speakeasy event that they were running in Sydney, and it was honestly like the most terrifying thing I'd ever done. Literally rocked up by myself, and it was like, I didn't even really know what it was, but it was like Movember had put this thing on where it was like, I didn't really know, but it was like, you know, I knew they like did good work and stuff and mental health, and it was like literally like, I don't know, 50 guys just like pouring their guts out. Like you had to get up on stage and talk about your, you know, your life and the things that were worrying you, which sounds like a nightmare. Do you know what I mean? It sounds like, what the hell? But honestly, like, oh man, I'd never felt more like safe in a space and like connected with him. There's these big burly guys from like Penrith out in Sydney, like just bawling their eyes out. There's actually a guy that we worked with who had prostate cancer, and I didn't even know. And like he was dealing with it the whole time. I did not even know. And I thought that was such an incredible thing that Movember did, and I know they run those sorts of events and do incredible work in the space of men's health, and that's really what this week's all about. So, if you're listening in and you've been in similar situations, or you know people around you have been affected, then hey, if you can donate $5 or $10, that's what we're trying to do this week. Have these conversations and raise money for men's health, which you can do so. There's a link on the Ben Lehman Bell Instagram bio. We've got a goal of 10,000. We've just sort of creeped over the 5K mark, but we'd really love to hit that target.
Oh, absolutely. Even if you wanted to have a conversation with us, I know it's obviously on the radio, it's very daunting. I mean, Liam just did it then, but if there's something you want to get off your chest, or if you want to chat with someone about it, people often say listening to the radio, it does feel like we're your mates, and because we are, it's just a bit more of a one-way conversation sometimes. But
we're even those mates, those guys riding their bikes really loudly on that ramp next to us. That's what that is.
But no, so as Liam said, this week is all about having important conversations. So if listening to the radio, if that's touched you, if you want to share some stories this morning, we would love for you to come on 13 24 10. And like Di in Templestowe joins us now. Good morning, Di. You're also going through a tough time, and you heard Liam talking on the radio about it.
Hi, yeah. I just was driving along, turned the radio on, and I thought, how refreshing, because it needs to be talked about more. This stigma's got to go. And, I'm going through a hard time too, and I don't know about you, but during your hard time, but also it's exhausting talking about it because of people's, views. And you're like, I don't want to sort of start talking about it. But, I did recently to a friend, and it really is, it just is such a relief. It's definitely not, everything's over like you said, but it certainly does open up the doors, and people can give you some really good advice once you start opening up, and yeah, things are starting to look up, and I really, really appreciate you on a public platform opening up. It's just so important.
No, thank you, Di, and I get where you come from as well. Like sometimes you think like, what problems do I, you can be feeling a certain way, and you're like, there's people worse off in the world, and what problems do I really have? But, I think the people around you that love you, your friends and stuff, no one thinks that. You know what I mean? They're just like, the right people in your life are always here for you, and everyone's got people like that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Di, for your call. Marco in Craigieburn. Marco, how are you feeling today?
Yeah, good morning, guys. I was mentioning, I actually feel choked up here, Liam. I'm going through this kind of stage at the moment, and I actually take my hat off through media as well. That's an issue because things get spread around, and you just don't know where to look or which way to look, so to speak. And yeah, so good on you, buddy. And I'm a transport driver myself, and I'm going through it day in, day out, and just keeping your head up and keeping strong at it, I suppose.
Marco, man, appreciate the call, and I hope you've got people around you that you're talking to as well, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. But I try to, you mentioned about bottling it up, but I'm keeping it more inside to not to, anyone, just a stranger, just to open up to anyone. I'm sort of like I'm more enclosed, but I will open up in regards to family, closer family and friends. But I'm very protective about just opening up in general, pretty much.
Well, I get you, Marco. But look, I'm glad you've got loved ones around you, man, that are happy to support you and hear you out.
And just remember, very importantly, if you have reached out to people around you and you do need more, there is always Lifeline 13 11 14. There's Lifeline 13 11 14, especially when we're talking about things like this. Now, I also want to preface this next call with that, because Marlene in Pakenham, good morning, you've given us a buzz as well. Now, would you like to share your story?
I would. A few years ago, I lost my dear cousin, who was more like a brother to me, to suicide, and he was in the Navy. And not long after that, he came down for my son's wedding, and my son, his marriage split up, and he was heading for a tree.
And I'm not sure if it was what happened to my cousin that stopped him, but he ended up going to a servo. And these ladies there knew that he wasn't right, and they asked him if he was okay, and he broke down. One of them was a counsellor. Now, years ago, before Are You OK in Movember, probably nobody wouldn't even have cared. So I just think it's just so important to speak up, and I'm just so proud of Liam for speaking up and making it, putting it out there that, not everyone wants to speak up, but if you see someone's not right, say something. It's not always easy to speak about depression.
That's true. Sometimes it does take yourself to notice it in somebody else that isn't willing to take that step and speak up. Well, Marlene, thank you for the call and sharing your story. Again, Lifeline 13 11 14, if this has raised anything for you. Thank you to everybody that's given us a buzz this morning. And again, Liam, thank you so much for opening up this morning.
No. Look, honestly, it's something that I'm proud of, being comfortable enough to talk about these sort of things. And I know it's not everyone has that. But yeah, I think that's kind of our whole point. Everyone should feel like they're able to talk about what they're feeling inside. And if more people did that, then we wouldn't have this crisis on our hands.
And all this week, it's about having these conversations. So if listening this morning, you were thinking about calling, or maybe you weren't even thinking about calling, but now you are. If you want to call 13 24 10 during the show, the phone lines are always open. Even if we don't get you on air straight away, we're definitely going to endeavour to get to every single person's story this week.
Also donate as well. On the Ben Lehman Bell Instagram bio, there's a link there. We're trying to raise $10,000 for Movember.
Shiver me timbers. This is Ben Liam and Bell's Pedal Mo
on Nova 100.